Download our complimentary guidebooks, checklists, and other useful financial resources at savantwealth.com/guides.
Right. Well, welcome today to our live Savant webinar. Thank you for joining us. Today we're discussing the 5 retirement strategies you need to know before retirement. So we're trying to narrow this down to 5 key areas. We've got a lot to unpack and cover today. My name is Danielle Dahn, and I'm a financial advisor in Savant's Naperville, Illinois office. I'm joined today by my partner, Ritu Jain. We work closely together, and uniquely, we're a all-female team here in Naperville, Illinois, and we're excited to connect with you today. Ritu, you want to say hi?
Thank you, Danielle. Hello, everyone. Let's talk about how best to replace your paycheck in retirement and ensure that there is a steady income. We will then also explore how to make most of your benefits and keep taxes from eating away into your savings. Finally, let's focus on what it all leads to, living your best and most fulfilling retirement life. We will then wrap up the session today with a Q&A, so feel free to jot down your questions as we go. And with that, let me hand it back to Danielle to get us started with the saving strategies.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ritu. And I would add for the Q&A, go ahead and put your questions in through Zoom because we'll be collecting them throughout and addressing them at the end. All right, so step 1, how do you build a strong foundation? What are the saving strategies before retirement? So preparing for that step. It's worth nothing without a strong base, a place to start. So that's where we're beginning here. So this slide here that we're starting with, you can see a hamster on a wheel, right? We all know the image. We're working so hard. What are we trying to get to for our next step and our goals? Well, what this page is outlining for you is you need to have a budget in retirement and know what that looks like. And oftentimes, if we're getting close to retirement, that means we're probably in some of our peak earning years. So this slide is meant to remind you, hey, be careful of lifestyle creep. As that pay is increasing, the income is increasing, be wary of what your expenses are so that you're aware of what is likely to continue, what you need to replace not only now, but in retirement, right? So be thoughtful about this. You don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. Keep putting money away. Get yourself close to that finish line is what our reminder is there for you, okay? Now, the next place we go in this, you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different buckets, and they have 3 different colors. So you've probably heard, and really anybody who's ever given any thoughts to investing knows that diversification is important, and you should own multiple things in multiple different ways. But I would say even above and beyond that, this is one of our biggest belief systems here at Savant is that you want to vary the types of accounts you have. Not only the things that you hold, but where you hold them is very critical and important too. So let's pretend these different buckets all have different tax treatments based on the color that they're coded. What if you just had one bucket? You're coming to me in retirement and you want help to, I'm putting my hands behind my back, for example. All I can do is draw from one tax type for you. There's not a lot we can do. That's really limiting. There's things that can be done, but my goodness, would you have a much better experience if in preparing for retirement, you set yourself up to have all of these various types where appropriate for you. Now you have flexibility. You can control when and where to take your income from, how to control the amount of tax you have over your lifetime, minimize it. It just becomes a beautiful retirement plan. So please focus on these buckets. Please examine what they look like for you in your personal situation and how should you shore them up getting close to the finish line, okay? So step 1, we've got listed here in this blue color, everything that's pre-tax. There's a whole alphabet soup of IRS code, but we've listed here 401k, SEP IRA, traditional IRA, maybe you're a 403B, you're a 457B, F, the plans, they go on and on. What they mean is that I'm putting this money in now. Well, ideally, I'm in a peak earning year. I'm getting the upfront tax deduction. But when this money comes out to me later in life, they come out at the highest rates, my marginal rates. Then you need to be mindful of that. The next category, we have this teal minty color looking, is referring to your taxable brokerage. So that is an account where it has the word taxable. It's outside of the structure of a retirement account. It doesn't have the rules and regulations provide for specific tax treatment. Instead, it's hitting your income tax return every year. So you want to be highly tax efficient in this bucket. And above and beyond that, if you do have the right vehicles in here and you're getting long-term tax rates, those capital gains rates are less expensive to you than that first bucket that we talked about when they come out, which are at more expensive marginal tax rates. So these two are very different and complement each other. If you have both of these pieces, ooh, can we do some really cool things in retirement? In regards to recreating your paycheck, which Ritu is going to talk to momentarily. Then the next category we have is this maroon color that's referring to health savings accounts or Roth accounts. So the first one we have listed is your health savings accounts. This is the holy grail of accounts. It's awesome. Not only do you get to put your money in now and not pay tax on it, but if you let it hang out in there, it grows tax-free and it comes out tax-free. It's triple tax exempt. You're never paying tax on it if you take it out for qualified expenses. In fact, this account has some caps on it because it is so favorable. It has to be paired with a high deductible health plan, so it's not the right situation for everyone. But if you do have this account, please don't be taking it out and reimbursing yourself immediately. Let this thing grow. Let it be invested. Hold on to your receipts. You can reimburse yourself in future years. You can use it for COBRA and a plan to bridge you to Medicare. There's so many things you can do. This account is important. Please bring it up with your advisor and discuss it. It's important. Sometimes it's overlooked because it's a smaller piece of the plan or it's being used immediately. So think about this in the way of retirement dollars. And then the next bucket that we have listed is your Roth 401k, your Roth IRA. This is the bucket that's the opposite of the bucket that we looked at first on the blue. It's saying, hey, I'm paying the taxes upfront now at today's rates. But the benefit to me is all of these distributions in later years, they not only grow tax-free, but they come out tax-free. That's pretty awesome too, but you got to time it right. When do you pay that tax upfront? Which bucket is right for you now? These are all very careful considerations to massage and create your own specific income stream in retirement. So the next place I'm taking you here is, okay, these saving strategies, if we just looked at the types of buckets, what's some basic order of where we go? So at the bottom of the slide, we've listed start here. And forgive me, I use my hands a lot. I just can't sit here and sit still. But with that said, we begin with your emergency savings accounts. So in my experience, I've been doing this more than 20 years. I just love what I do. But I have a lot of examples. So you only retire once. I help a handful of people retire every year. So I have some examples for you. Emergency funds. This is probably a basic concept, but let me tell you, there's people on each end of the spectrum. So I've seen individuals with years and years of savings sitting in cash, right? Are you secure? Absolutely. But you're losing your money safely and slowly to inflation. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is maybe you're extremely comfortable with the markets and you have a fear of missing out and you want every single dollar invested. Don't do that either. There's an opportunity cost of needing the money at the wrong time. Emergency funds, start there. Then make sure you get your full employer match. That's where we step up to step 2. Then we go to max additional contributions, whether your plan is traditional, Roth, you want to discuss your specific tax situation with your advisor, but max out the contributions. Then the next step 4, you can go to your IRAs, Roth or traditional. Roth may be precluded to you because you're a high income earner and the door is closed. There's something called a back door that you can get in, and that is going to depend on your specific accounts, the type of accounts that you have, and it's a strategy that's available that you should explore with your advisor to see if it's appropriate. And then the last step 5 is your taxable brokerage account. Your taxable brokerage account is what we talked about before, outside of those retirement accounts where you're adding up money to deploy in later years. This, I guess, slide that you're seeing on your screen is just referring to where are we at in 2025. So if you're less than 50 years of age, you can put away $23,500. for maxing out your plan. If you're 50 and older, you've got a $7,500 catch up, right? So that puts you in at $31,000. And then if you're 60 to 63, this is the very first year for Secure Act 2.0 where you can put away even additional money. So if you fall in this category of 60 to 63, please make sure you're visiting your plan with HR, ask your advisor for questions. And again, we have this in a maroon color. We're just hitting you over the head again. Don't ever leave an employer match on the table. That is free money. I'm begging you, please take it. And this slide is getting a little bit more into the mechanics of a Roth versus a traditional. So we talked about each of these different buckets, and here it is explaining the difference. So the first category is the Roth. Why would I use the Roth? It's because I expect to be in a higher tax bracket in retirement. So the contributions that I put in now are after tax, but all my growth is tax-free. And you'll see the limits that are listed below. Specifically, if you're using a Roth 401k on this slide, we put the higher limits. And then above and beyond that, please note that these accounts don't have a required minimum distribution. So that means the IRS is never forcing your hands to take money out. The next grouping in this maroon is traditional. So you would use this if I want the income tax deduction today because I'm going to be in a lower tax environment than I am now because I am a high income earner. And these situations may change based on the timing of your retirement, based on your employment situation, and et cetera. So the traditional is taking the tax upfront deduction to benefit for taxes today, knowing that in later years it's going to come out at ordinary income rates. And at 73, and if I'm a little bit younger, even as late as 75, if I still have my money in this account, the IRS has a minimum. It's about 4% in the first year and creeps up each year. It's a little bit less than that, but the IRS is saying you have to begin taking this money out. So those are all things you should consider that are coordinated with all the other buckets that you have. And with that said, that's your base, that's your foundation. Now, how do you step in and replace that paycheck? Go ahead, Ritu. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. So, Danielle and I often see that clients feel uneasy when it comes to transitioning from wealth accumulation to distribution. It's kind of like taking the training wheels off a bike. You know you can do it, but it still feels like a big step. So let's talk about how you can replace your income in retirement without maybe that wobbly feeling. So this first chart that we have lots of graphs and charts for you today. And this first one is we begin to look at a family, or let's say a household, which was probably making, say, about $400,000 to $500,000 pre-retirement, and is now retired and are needing a draw of about 100 to 150,000 in living expenses. Now, what you see here is those early retirement years, which are the blue and the yellow side of the graph. And those retirement years might have some post-retirement income, like deferred comp or maybe rental property income. And you could be looking to supplement this income with portfolio draw. And that's why these early years are so important to put great planning in place. Because look what's happening in the later years. You have all this income coming at you via Social Security, you have the RMD coming, and those early years each person might have a more unique situation. And your situation might allow you to accelerate income. So maybe you want to do Roth conversion that will lead to acceleration of income. Or you might be in a high tax bracket due to all the other income coming in the early years, and you might want to draw from a tax-free account. Without proper early planning in place, the income in the later years can push you to a high income tax bracket. And you might also be in a situation where you're filing in the later years as a single or as a surviving spouse. So, why exactly are we really referring to this? With your own unique resources that will meet your spending goals in a given year, This picture view, this big picture view, helps you relieve that stress. Am I going to run out of money? What happens if one income source changes? This quick chart gives you an idea of where the income is coming to meet all your goals. Thank you. Now, here is another chart just to give you a quick visual depiction of some sources of retirement income. Your sources are unique to you, and that could be you're drawing from your retirement plans. You do have a rental property that's supplementing your income. You have pensions in place. The idea is basically to create a robust plan that relies on multiple income streams and creates that well-balanced foundation for a retirement lifestyle. So now that we've looked at how to replace your income in retirement and the planning that you need to put in place early on, let's turn our attention to maximizing the benefits that you're entitled to. It could be some of them could be the government benefits like Social Security, Medicare, and that can play a crucial role in stretching your retirement dollars. Danielle is our in-house expert when it comes to strategies on benefits, and I will turn it over to her to give us some details on these benefits.
Oh, thank you, Ritu. I don't know if I'd call myself an expert, but thank you. So I've been doing this for many years. And let me say, first of all, Social Security, that's an entire webinar in itself. Medicare, another webinar in itself. In fact, you can go back to our website and find things of this sort. So we're going to touch on the broad strokes as you're preparing for these items as strategies to get ready for retirement. We're going to hit the important highlights, but please know there's a lot of details to this in your specific situation, so please connect with your advisor. All right, so starting here with Social Security. And like I said, Ritu was kind to call me an expert, but I've been doing this for a couple of decades, and no matter who I'm sitting in front of and how long I've known you, I always have to go back to, okay, how old are you now? What is your potential life expectancy, your health situation? What is your benefit and compared to your spouse's benefit? At what age are they planning to retire? All these different places create a grid. And then it's not only an emotional decision, it can be. Sometimes people feel strongly one way or the other, but it's more of a financial mathematical decision about where do I break even? What's the best strategy for me? So we have some really great tools here at Savant to get us to that mathematical piece, and then us as the advisors can take that information and massage it with the other parts of your retirement income to get you to a really good place. So what I mean by that, determining when to begin retirement benefits, that's important. If you delay it to 70, past full retirement age, you get an 8% raise each year. So there's a lot of attractiveness to this. But there may be reasons you want to take it early as opposed to drawing down your portfolio and vice versa. So we got to go through the pros and cons of that. And delaying till 70, like one example would be, we've got listed here all these other factors. The lower the page says survivor benefits. Maybe you and your spouse have very different Social Security benefits. One is significantly higher, and depending on your ages and etc., there may be a strategy where one person we want to defer theirs as long as possible. It's more critical because if something happens to a couple, one person passes, Social Security is going to send you one benefit moving forward, not two. So if we can maximize one benefit so the survivor gets as much as possible, that can be a really good decision. We also want to figure your health, your life expectancy. I always use the term dry powder. What I mean by that is even if you haven't filed for Social Security, it's ready to be ignited, it's ready to go. You can enter the system once you're of age and eligible. So even though you don't have the intention of taking it, life happens, you can change. So those are things to consider. Spousal benefits, ex-spouse benefits, if you were married for 10 years and you have not remarried, you can be entitled to ex-spousal benefits. Spousal benefits can refer to the fact that you take the higher of your own benefit or one half of your spouse's at full retirement age. These are all things to consider. We've got listed the earnings test. So if you earn more than $23,400 is the amount in 2025, with Social Security, if you earn over that and it's before your full retirement age for Social Security, say your full retirement age isn't until 67, if you begin before then, you can have part of your Social Security benefits withheld for you. Also, taking early can permanently change your survivor benefits in later years, your spousal benefits. So you need to weigh the pros and cons of all of these different considerations. Just know that this is important, and there's times that it's extremely straightforward, and let me tell you, that's fun to just have a straightforward and easy path, but there's many times it's not, right? So it's revisiting what's the best path for you. So things to keep in mind before claiming. A lot of this information we just covered, the earnings test, the fact that you get a reduction in benefits for taking before your full retirement age. But the second grouping is really important. So at the beginning of January, this is completely new information. You may be aware, you may not. It may impact you, it may not. But take this information away because I bet it impacts someone you care about, someone you know, and you can share it. So the Social Security Fairness Act, so we just changed administration, but former President Biden signed at the beginning of January the Social Security Fairness Act. What does this mean? It means that programs that were in place that were called the government pension offset and the windfall elimination provision, they have now been removed. In fact, it's going back retroactive to 2024. So the Social Security Administration knows that this is law. They're looking at ways of how they're going to implement it. So please stay tuned. You can go to ssa.gov to follow the updates and see how this retroactive benefit or when the changes will occur for beneficiaries of Social Security payments this year. So just know that this has changed, and it's a very material to many families. So what I mean by that, here's an example. We have listed there first the government pension offset that impacts survivors, and also we have listed here first teachers. So I know someone very well who lost their father very young. So mom stayed in the role of teacher, right, and paid into a government pension for many years and is the beneficiary of that now as a retiree. Because she has this teaching government pension, she's subject to the government pension offset, and the survivor benefits that she would otherwise receive for her spouse were reduced, and actually in her example, all the way to zero. Okay. Now that this law has changed, the government pension offset is gone. She will still continue to receive her teaching pension, but she will also receive the benefits that were originally available as a deceased spouse from her husband who paid in many years ago. So this is a huge game changer for this family and this widow, and this is just a wonderful circumstance. In fact, the son is a financial advisor that I know well, so they're so excited for the mom, right? Then the second scenario, windfall elimination provision. That is not necessarily survivors' benefits. It's the fact that you're paying into the system and having your retirement benefits impacted. So maybe you have your own Social Security benefit and you also have your own government pension. You could be police, teacher, most common, and you could have your benefit reduced. If this is always a concern of yours, WEP, it's now gone. This is a game changer as well. So let's say maybe you have one spouse who did not pay into the Social Security system and the other one who paid into a government system. So the one who didn't would have a sizable benefit in the way of Social Security for their own. Well, now the person who never paid in now has access to a spousal benefit they wouldn't have had before. In summary, if you're a teacher, if you're part of the police, certain government employees, if you've ever heard this fall of the windfall elimination, the government pension offset, and you think it might have impacted you, this is now eliminated, and this is a big change. Please connect with your advisor, all right? And Google and look up this program. Then we talk about Social Security for maximizing benefits. Social Security benefits have been taxed since I believe it was like 1984. And in that time period, we don't tax 100% of the benefits. We tax up to 85%. So that needs to be considered because all your other income sources are going to determine where you fall on the 0 to 85% range, right? And another thing we have listed there is knowing that Social Security has withholdings that are very specific, 7, 10, 12, 22. So if you're impacted by these changes in Social Security, please make sure you have your correct withholding on file. Please sure your direct deposit is correct and that you're all ready to go. And then the last thing that we comment on there is Medicare. So you can apply for Social Security and Medicare at the same time, and you can do them separately. Do you know that when you do enter the Medicare system, the premiums are typically withheld directly from your Social Security benefit, assuming that you receive a Social Security benefit. Okay. Now, Medicare. Medicare is a very complex topic in itself. We have webinars on this. There's health insurance brokers that can help you select the exact plan that's appropriate for you. But as someone who's preparing for retirement and we're focusing on the 5 key areas, know that Medicare begins at age 65. So that creates an enrollment period for you 3 months before that birthday month and 3 months afterward. If you continue working, you may be subject to special enrollment periods and coordination of benefits between your current employer and Medicare. There's lots to consider. Should you purchase a supplemental policy? What does that look like? But the most important piece at the bottom that comes from financial planning, and we're talking about preparing for retirement, that we see people often not include in their planning is IRMA. Oh, you know what it is once you get there and it hits you, because people will complain about this left and right. The problem is that it happens years before it actually impacts you. What do I mean by that? So IRMA, this is not a person. It's not the scary aunt in your family, but it's actually an acronym that we don't define on this page, but we do on the next page. So the income related monthly adjustment amount. What that means is that Medicare is looking at your income from 2 years prior, right? So for in 2025, Medicare is looking at your 2023 income tax return. And it has tiers about where you're going to pay premiums. Because if you have a base premium and then you increase your income for a one-time event or who knows what, it can impact your future Medicare premiums. I literally just went through this last Friday in a client meeting. First time seeing their tax return, talking through their Medicare premiums as their second year paying. They're completely getting hit with IRMA, want to know why. This is the first time we're looking at it for them because they're newer. But where I'm going with this is in 2023, they're a business owner, they're able to control their income and their expenses, prepaying expenses and et cetera, to determine really they have control about how much income is reported. And they just barely went into the next bracket, which cost them in total between the two of them a little over $5,000 more a year. So that's something that could have been avoided. So as we talk about these Roth conversions, accelerating income, deductions, all these different things, don't be scared of IRMA, but be aware of it and make good decisions. So that's a big part of what we do here. And here is a chart that has a whole bunch of numbers. You can Google this too. Here's the IRMA amounts for 2025, and you can see where you fall in the brackets. So if you're not paying an additional IRMA amount, you're paying the $185 on a monthly amount. But you can see if you go into that next bracket, if you're single and you're making $106,000 based on 2 years ago, we should say, then your IRMA premium is an additional $74 a month, right? And then you have a Part D that's an additional expense too. And then if you have a spouse, you got to do this times 2 in every single month. So if you just barely creep into one of these brackets, it can be extremely frustrating. So work with your advisor, and all of this is coordinated together is basically the answer, because it gets complex fast and it is often overlooked and you don't even know you screwed up until 2 years later. IRMA also has an appeals process that your advisor can help you with if you retired, you have to have a life event, things of that nature. And then here, this last page is just referring to of these benefits, health insurance prior to age 65. What I would share here is probably the first one is the one that I think is most often overlooked. It's very common to hear from someone to say, oh, I'm going to work until 65 so that I can get to Medicare, right? You can also buy a policy on the exchange, leave in sooner. You could use your spouse's insurance. You could work part-time that possibly provides you with healthcare insurance. There's a lot of options. But typically, COBRA is a good one that's often overlooked. You're going to be paying for your own coverage, so the employee's share, you're going to be paying the employer's share, plus generally about a 2% surcharge for administration. So call it like 102% of the plan cost. But what that does is it gives you 18 months. So if you leave at 63 and a half, you have your same plan in place. You're covered until 65. Don't just keep working because of that healthcare. Know that you have a lot of options and you can discuss this with your advisor and make it part of your total financial plan too. Nothing more than don't be scared, okay? Be informed. All right. Now, with that said, we're going to talk through how do you minimize these taxes during retirement so more money goes in your pocket. All right, Ritu?
Thank you, Danielle. And you're so right. Elimination of WEP and GPO has been a game changer. Actually, last few days have been delightful as we've been able to reach out to many of our clients who have been positively impacted. So now let's talk about taxes. I am an enrolled agent with IRS, and as Danielle knows, I love taxes. And the key to taxes isn't really avoiding them entirely, but optimizing them so you are paying the least amount of lifetime taxes. Okay. It's hard to talk about tax efficiencies without revisiting this bucket mantra that Danielle has already introduced us to. For those of you who are in their pre retirement years, talk to your advisor. Make sure that you're filling each tax bucket with different types of assets. Why do you need to do that? It gives you the flexibility to adapt to life's changes or maybe the tax law changes down the road. Okay. Very quickly revisiting the three buckets, you have the tax-free bucket, which is your Roth IRA. You have the tax-deferred bucket, which could be your traditional IRAs. And finally, your taxable bucket, which is your brokerage accounts. Okay. Once you have an idea of these three buckets, you want to place certain assets in the account where they are most tax efficient. This concept is called asset location. Think of it like organizing your pantry, maybe. So you store items where they will keep best and they are easiest to use. Let me give you an example. So stocks that you believe have high potential of growth might be best owned in a Roth IRA. You can that way eliminate future gains and draw tax-free. A friend recently came to me who retired and asked me to look over her portfolio. She used to be in the high income tax bracket and she held municipal bonds in her taxable accounts, which made a lot of sense for her because they tend to be federal tax free. But on retiring, when her tax bracket had dropped, they might not be the best asset to hold in your taxable account. She could also switch to maybe corporate bonds, CDs, and hold them in a tax deferred account, so maybe in her IRA. And she could use the taxable account assets for growth focused stocks rather than bonds or CDs. It's just a straightforward way to keep your overall tax bill down. Okay. Now let's move to the next topic of conversation in taxes. I think everybody wants to talk about Roth conversions. Okay. So what exactly is a Roth conversion? Roth conversion means transferring funds from your tax deferred account, so like your traditional IRA, into a Roth IRA. So what are you exactly doing? You're paying your taxes today, okay? So that you're able to draw in future at tax-free, basically, from your Roth IRA. And why would I do that today? You might do it today because you anticipate that your future income tax bracket might be higher, so you can take the tax hit now. Or you might have goals where you want to give assets to your children which have no tax implication. Also, Roth IRAs have no RMD. So why aren't we all doing it? Well, number one, it creates a tax liability for you at this time. Number two, It's important to analyze whether any of these situations, would you be in a lower tax bracket in the future, is working for you. So if you are finding yourself in a place where it's an opportune time to make a Roth conversion, yes, that's a great idea. You should go ahead and do it. But also consider some of the factors like IRMA and how much you're accelerating your income by making a Roth conversion. So now that we've talked about Roth conversions, very quickly, let's jump into some of the tax strategies here. I have 5 quick strategies for you. Tax itself, it's such a long topic. We can talk about it for another couple of hours. But to wrap this up, I have 5 quick strategies. So my husband loves to complain about how much taxes we pay every year. Okay. And I often have to remind him, it's not only just about the taxes that you pay currently, but also about your lifetime tax bill. Sometimes paying a bit more now can save you a lot down the road. Okay. And my second tax tip would be to adjust the income timing. This is something we already spoke about when we were talking about a family that is drawing from the portfolio early in the retirement years. I'd mentioned at that time that those early retirement years can present a unique planning opportunity for you to accelerate or deaccelerate income. And that's when it becomes important to be doing like a tax analysis to understand where you stand today and what future tax brackets will look like. Third is about utilizing tax loss harvesting. So markets don't always behave as we would like them to, which is going up. We have been in a great market condition in the last couple of years. But if you see yourself running into a situation where some of your investments are making losses, you could use that opportunity to tax loss harvest to decrease your tax bill for the current year or for the next year. Okay. Fine. The fourth point here is implementing state tax planning. We often talk about moving to a different state or splitting time between 2 states. That's when the local tax regulations become very important. Okay. Remember that the tax rules do vary state by state. So look at the income tax rates of each state that you are considering, but also look at property taxes, estate taxes. All those things can be imperative because taxes somewhat are like termites. They do eat away at your portfolio. Okay. And finally, charitable giving strategies. I know we have a webinar in itself for charitable giving strategies. There are many that can reduce your tax implication. But if you think you are at the age, if you find yourself at the age 70.5, so 70 and a half, you can use qualified charitable distribution, or you might have heard of the word QCD, where you can give directly to the charities from your IRA. You might want to do that if you see that your RMD might push you into a higher tax bracket, and this helps reduce your tax bill and also fulfill your philanthropic goals. You could also gift appreciated securities directly from your brokerage account. So that's another way of gifting and removing the tax liability of selling those appreciated securities and then gifting cash. All these strategies are like assembling a puzzle. But it's not just about saving money, it's about using that money to live a rewarding and a meaningful life. So, in our next segment, Danielle will talk about how to build a fulfilling retirement that goes beyond finances and speaks to your passions and your goals. Over to you, Danielle.
I love that, Ritu. And I've never heard termites in your portfolio. I kind of love it. Very good. Okay, so with that said, we're bringing all this together. What's the whole point in this, right? The whole point is to have your wealth work for you. How do you have a fulfilling retirement? And what does that look like? So, what I would say, first of all, um, when I look at people that retire, what does you know individuals in your life? Look at them. Are they successful? Are they not successful in that transition? Do you want to do it over a period of time? How do I want to spend my time? Where do I want to live? All these things to consider. I would say what's very common is that I feel like most people we work with are professionals who are very passionate about their work and caring of what they do. And maybe in some circumstances, they're very much burnt out and ready to be done. At that point in time, they go and hibernate regardless of the time of the year. It might be a month or two of catching up on sleep, organizing those folders that you've had in the basement for decades, all this cleaning up. And then you kind of come up for air and you're like, okay, what's next? Right? I think where people are successful, it tends to be that they've already have a plan, they've already started doing some of the things that they enjoy outside of work. And it's a nice transition and you're kind of finding yourself again. I think where you do find individuals that struggle, it's probably most common when this is just my own personal anecdotal experience from seeing over time. If your entire being is wrapped up in your work, your pride, your sense of purpose, what really brings you joy, if you remove that, it can be extremely challenging. So you really need to define that and think through what that means to you before you step off into retirement. Right? Are you going to be a caregiver for grandchildren? Start doing that a week before you actually do that full time. Are you going to spend your time doing more athletic adventures, more relationships, more volunteer? Start doing those things before you just go cold turkey. That would be my best advice to you. Ritu, in the interest of time, is there anything you would like to add?
I really like what you said, Danielle. I think the idea is what you're retiring to. And the only thing I would add is sometimes I think about our busy lives, and I feel like I might not have had the enough time right now to think about what legacy I want to leave behind. But retirement can offer you that opportunity to just slow down and think deeply and look back at not only what you've done, but also shape the story that you want to continue writing.
Beautiful. Very well said. So make sure you define what that looks like for you so that you feel fulfilled. Here we have in the chat box, there's going to be a link to our financial health assessment. So at Savant, we've got 10 key areas of planning that we think about. This is a questionnaire you can click on and see how do you score? Hey, am I doing great in some areas? Do some areas need attention? These are the types of things that can be assessed through this survey. Also, all that Ritu and I covered today, you get all of our years of expertise and just our passion and geeking out on personal finance. This is what we love to do. There's no way we can communicate everything to you that we know, nor even begin to remotely scratch the surface about your own specific situation. So there's a link in the chat too that you can set up a free 15-minute call to learn a little bit more about Savant and how we can potentially be a good fit and help you. Okay? This page here is the disclosures, but then I'm also going to exit sharing the screen so that you can see us. And Ritu and I have recorded a few of the questions that have come in, but we are almost at 45 minutes, so we'll only be able to tackle a few. So if you have more questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat so that all of that can be addressed and there can be a follow-up for you. Okay? So Ritu, the first one that I see here that's like a big one that I hear all the time too is, how do I know I have enough to retire? How much do I need? What would you say to
Yes,
that? It's
that's a
so
great
broad.
question.
I know,
Yes,
right?
yes. And you're so right, Danielle. We hear this all the time. We get asked this question at dinners. And, I can try to give you a simplistic answer, but there is no one answer that fits everybody's situation. But to begin with, start to take into account what are your current expenses. So, what are you spending? What is your total spend? Okay. We believe that typically retirees need about 70 to 80% of your current expenses. Okay. So take that number, say, let's just take a hypothetical number. Say you're spending 100,000 right now. So let's be conservative. Let's take 80% of that number. So you're at 80,000 in today's dollars that you need in your retirement years. Now, to very simplistically get to a number of how much do you need, you can choose to multiply it by any number from 25 to 30. And again, to be conservative, let's multiply that by 30, and that gives you a dollar amount. Okay. Ideally, we financial planners like to use more complex advanced tools to be able to create that answer for you. Because those tools, like we use Monte Carlo simulation to come derive that answer, but because the tools take into account your risk tolerance, the longevity, the taxes you'll pay, and the market conditions, and all these things can give you a different answer for a different person. But here is a simplistic way to calculate the number if you want a very quick number for today. Okay, Danielle, I have a question I see here for you. So you talked about the Social Security Fairness Act, right? Do you know where the listeners of this webinar can actually go to get more information on it?
Yes, good point, Ritu. I know this is a very hot topic that's current, right? And it's unfolding daily. So it's fun to follow and see how this is actually executed. But I would recommend just going to ssa.gov, the Social Security Administration's website. You can also Google the Social Security Fairness Act. And again, go to your own Social Security website benefit if you're already receiving or you know that your benefits are going to be changing to update your own withholding to be appropriate for you. Make sure your direct deposit is correct. Make sure all of this is ready to go before the Social Security Administration actually makes the transition and begins to address this. Okay. All right, so I'm going here too. What's another one? Uh, should I be moving to an income tax-free state in retirement? I'll give that to you, Ritu, since you are the person who could spend all day in a tax return.
Thank you, Danielle. Considering the temperature here in Chicago, I want to move to a tax-free state of Florida today for sure. Okay. So, moving is a big decision. Yes, and I'm guessing you've already thought through all the personal, reasons you want to make that move. Could be weather, or it could be other reasons that you're moving to. A few things that you want to keep in mind, especially when it comes to taxes, and I think I've already said this earlier. Consider income taxes along with property taxes, estate taxes. You could be going to a state which has no income tax, but might have, an estate tax that would be higher than your current state. Um, an example comes to my mind is Washington. Washington has no income tax, but it has the highest top marginal estate tax rate of 20%. Okay. The next thing I would say is research thoroughly all the necessary steps that are needed to move residency. Let me give you an example. So in Illinois, say I was moving from Illinois to Florida, which I would love to, especially days like this in winters. And Illinois does not allow for residents to have a dual homestead exemption. So what does that mean? That means that if I were to move to Florida, I should be canceling the homestead exemption that I have for Illinois. Because if I do keep it active, it could raise residency disputes. And that's just one example. There are many steps involved based on the state you're leaving to the state you're going to, and make sure you've considered all those things. Okay. And finally, update your estate plan. It should meet the local state laws, you know. Um, and and I wish you all the best with that move, actually. I'm looking at another question here. Danielle, you might want to take this. It addresses the last section that you led us to, which is about living a fulfilling life in retirement. And what this person would like to know is, what are some of the challenges or hiccups you see early retirees face?
Okay, very good, Ritu. And this will have to be our last question because we're running out of time here. But I love how you threw that my way. The first thing that comes to mind for me is you need a relationship with someone that you trust. What I mean by that is because regardless of the situation, I can't even imagine if you don't have a plan in place, how you need nerves of steel to jump off the ship and retire and just hope that everything works out okay. to have those levels of comfort. Oh, that just sounds wonderful. But I would say for almost everybody we work with, it's always true. I can see it coming a million miles away. So I also tell them before it happens is that you go from accumulate, 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 and now I have to spend the money. It's such a mind shift reset. It's so hard to do. So no matter how much the projections show you're 99% successful, you have too much money left at the end of the plan. We don't want you to die rich unless that's your goal, right? You should be spending the money. There's a hesitancy to spend it. That happens all the time. And I promise you, a couple of years in, when you see those withdrawals coming out and you still see your principles staying intact, depending on the situation, right? You could decline, you could retire in a declining market. There's lots of things. But as a whole, there's just a sense of relief a couple of years in to say, oh my goodness, this is working out the way I thought it would. And now I actually see it happening. So I would say those feelings, those levels of concern, uncertainty, that is so common and it's so fun 5 years later when everybody's like really free and like, oh, it's yeah, you'll just check in, but everything's going great, right? That's where I want to see you get. So I'd say that's the hiccup. So I'd just say in closing, Ritu and I just want to thank you for spending your afternoon with us, taking an hour of your time. This is stuff we enjoy doing. Hopefully this is helpful to you. Savant has some amazing tools where we can help and connect. So if you want to put a note in the chat, that can happen. And thank you so much for participating. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
If you enjoyed this webinar, visit savantwealth.com/guides and download our complimentary guidebooks, checklists, and other useful financial resources.